Hey everybody, Nathan Ronan, CFA, here with another update that I'm publishing today on social media, my YouTube channel, and other forms of communication. Actually, I decided to take a step back from just giving out, advice on, CFA study techniques or tips or strategies, and just make this little and hopefully short update about the kinds of questions that I get from candidates that I think would be helpful to other candidates to listen to. And one of the ones that recently I talked to my candidates and I talked to potential candidates, and I kind of appreciate getting on the phone still these days. Maybe I'm just a little bit old school. I like communication, I'm kind of an extrovert myself. But I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman. Actually, he was outside the United States, and he was asking me after he wanted to know a little bit more about the CFA program and what kinds of products I have. And he kind of said, "Hey, Nathan, I actually follow your YouTube videos very often, and you give a lot of what I think is good advice." Okay, and I was wondering if you don't mind sharing with me some of your thoughts, because I'm 23 years old. I think he said he was 23 years old. And he said he was afraid of making like a lot of mistakes going forward that other people have made. And he'd like to try to avoid them because, as the old saying is, one learns from his own mistakes, but one who doesn't learn from other people's mistakes or tends to repeat the same mistakes as somebody else has done is not really generally a wise person. And of course, maybe we can argue about this till we're blue in the face, but in my opinion, many times there's a lack of wisdom out there these days. And I actually applaud this person. And I said, again, I believe he was 23 years old, he said. And his question was, is there any way you could tell me as a 23-year-old, what you wish you knew when you were 23 years old, but may have learned the hard way? And that if you were 23 again, you would kind of understand it and not repeat it. I was like, whoa, boy, do I feel like I am on an interview for a job or for, I don't know, an MBA program or something like that. Woo! I was like, wow, that's coming out of left field. And I actually liked the question, and I, gave him the best answer that I could at the time. I was just doing this on the flip. But then I actually sat down and I thought to myself, what are some of the things that I wish I knew years ago when I was 23 years old? And if I had known at that time, I wouldn't repeat, and I would know it better, and I'd probably be even further along in life. In other words, what have I learned the hard way? So here's a couple things, and maybe they will touch you, maybe they won't, maybe you'll learn from them, maybe you'll avoid them. But here's some of the stuff what I feel I've learned over the years. Number one, I would say, is don't be a people pleaser. Now, people could take this the wrong way. Sure, everybody wants to be liked. People want people to think highly of them. I mean, that's normal. But there is a point where some people they go overboard. And I would call this the first one. And that is that they become people pleasers. Because when you become a people pleaser, always trying to make other people happy at your own expense, it only makes you lose yourself. In other words, you lose perspective. You get upset about everything. You get disappointed. You realize that people didn't meet your expectations. So what you need to do is you need to try your best. Obviously, if your boss asks for something, try your best. Okay, obviously you want him to be satisfied because it affects your salary, your bonus, things like that. But in life, I probably would want to have learned at the age of 23 not to focus on being a people pleaser. Okay, and trying to get everybody to adore you, love you, like you, talk highly about you. It's really not necessary, because in the end, all you do is make it very difficult for yourself. Okay. The other lesson that I would probably say, and it's very important, and I think it should be at the top, is that health is everything. Boom. If you don't have your health, if you're going to visit doctors, if you're paying co-pays or you're paying doctors and you're having surgeries and you're constantly in pain and aches and everything, that's terrible. I mean, that's terrible. It's, unavoidable for some people, but a lot of people who are very healthy, they take their health for granted. They don't even think about it. They don't wake up in the morning and say, wow, thank you for having my health. I would never suggest to anybody to trade their good health or their strong health for short-term gains. If I could have $20 million here and poor health here, okay, or meaning have good health, I should say, have good health here, or $20 million, I would rather have the good health. I would rather not be visiting the doctors, being in pain, telling people about my pain, medicines. That's just, it's horrendous. And if you're going through that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And health is really everything. Okay, so that's how I would say it. If you have to choose between short-term gains and health, select your health. Because sometimes people could just be focused on the short-term gains and drive themselves crazy and drive themselves to have ulcers and aches and pains and migraines, and then that leads to other problems, and it's not worth it. Keep your health. Okay. The other lesson that I've learned, which complements that, is about chasing money. Chasing money without purpose leads to internal emptiness. Okay. A lot of people have a lot of money. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of money today. Okay. Celebrities, politicians, kings, queens. Everybody thinks that all of these people with all this money in the world, and they chase the money and they do all kinds of contracts, and are happy people. Some might be, probably in an interview they say they will be, but then you'll notice a lot of times they'll be on drugs, or they'll use all kinds of substance abuse. Not all of them, but many of them. Suicides. You know, they'll even commit atrocities, you know, murders, whatever. Chasing money doesn't equate to being happy. So a lot of times people say, you know what, I make a lot of money, but I don't feel fulfilled. I don't be fulfilled inside. And that's what your job, your occupation, your life should be doing, is giving you purpose and meaning. I'm not a pastor, and I'm not a, religious scholar or anything like that, or, a psychologist or a therapist. But all I can tell you is, when I was chasing money and only money and only money, and yes, I run a business and I want to make more money, of course. But chasing money without any purpose and not being happy with what you're doing, that leads to emptiness. I would never recommend that. And that's what happened to me a lot of times when I was working in the industry, is I was getting this high, what I considered a high salary. And, I just wasn't happy with what I was doing. So that would be another thing that I would advise not to do. Okay. The other, or let's say the fourth one now would be, I would say, valuing your time. Your time is your real wealth, and you should protect it as hard as you can, fiercely. Time is important. There are people out there that will just suck up your time. They'll waste your time. They'll use you. You got to be careful about those very toxic people, okay? Your time is your real wealth, and you should spend it the way you want to spend it, not the way other people want you to spend it. That's really very important. Very successful people, from what I've learned over the years, they value their time. They know where to put the effort in, where not to put the effort in, not to give their time to things that are not going to into projects that aren't going to materialize, or, talking to people who are just not really listening at all and not absorbing what they're saying. So you got to value your time. And again, time is your real wealth. Another one that I would say is something that I should have learned at the age of, 23 maybe, or even maybe a little bit older or younger, is that most people, and I think this might sound harsh, don't care. In other words, build your own path anyway. If I relate this to the CFA program, if you're a level 3 candidate, nobody cares whether either the portfolio management pathway, the private wealth management pathway, or the private markets pathway. It's going to say CFA on your charter, and that's all people are going to care about down the road, that you got your CFA charter, that you accomplished it, and that speaks volumes for itself. I can almost guarantee you that nobody's going to sit there and say, oh, which pathway did you take in the CFA program when you got to level 3? I highly doubt that. And if that's the best question that they can come up with, you might want to think about working for that company, if that's the way they're, looking at things. So people really don't care so much. Build your own pathway anyway, and, do what you think is appropriate for you. And I don't mean be heartless. I'm not saying be heartless and don't consider other people's feelings, or don't be don't have empathy. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is do things the way you think it's proper for you, and don't worry about getting validation from other people, because they're going to tell you what you want to hear anyway, and inside they really don't care. Another thing that I would probably say is you got to learn to love yourself. Now that sounds mushy and, kind of like, what are you talking about? You love yourself? Of course I love myself. You'd be surprised about how many people are always trying to emulate somebody else, be somebody else, act like somebody else, have a different approach, or control their inner abilities and control their inner emotions and control they try to be somebody that they're not. A lot of this stems from sometimes low self-esteem, but also from not loving yourself. There is no way that you can expect anybody to truly love you, respect you, or whatever if you don't love yourself first. Because when you love yourself and you have confidence in yourself and you believe in yourself, that projects forward, and then people actually see that, okay? So I would say love yourself first, or you're going to end up settling for less everywhere, okay? That would be my next kind of like thing that I learned or would have wanted to know at the age of 23. Friends. Let's talk about friends. Everybody likes to say, here's all my friends. Everybody's got 1 million friends today. Well, not all friends are forever. I wish I learned that. Not all friends are forever. I mean, I have a handful of friends from high school and college and even my MBA program that I keep in touch with. I have a lot of acquaintances, but friends, I would be careful about using that word too loosely, because your friends today are not necessarily your friends tomorrow. A lot of times you can, start a business with a friend, or you can, move closer to a friend or whatever, and things can just change on a dime. So not all friends are forever. Choose your friends wisely. Don't choose them emotionally, and make sure that, you're not obviously doing things that would slight your friends. But keep in mind that you shouldn't expect your friends to be lifelong friends. Many people have lifelong friends. It's possible, depending on the environment in which they're living and how things are. But you're going to grow. Things are going to change. Your needs are going to change. Your wants, your desires are going to change, and so will your friends. So keep in mind that your friend today may not be your friend 5-10 years down the road. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be friends. It just means you need to keep that in mind. Another one that I would definitely have wanted to know when I was 23 years old, and I keep talking about this in many of my videos, is skills pay more than designations or degrees. But Nathan, you teach the CFA? Yes, I teach the CFA designation. What I'm saying is that an employer is going to pay you for your skills, not for your degrees. Yes, they love to see you as educated as possible with a master's or a bachelor's from this school or that school, top 10B. That's all nice. But at the end of the day, it's a set salary that they give you many times. But skills, work experience, and skills, that speaks more volumes than just degrees. So what I would always do, and I think this is very important, the point is very important to push forward, is that you should invest in yourself, invest in your learning. That's something that's really important. I watched this guy a couple of weeks ago. Somebody sent me something. I think his name was Charlie Kirk. He's probably very famous. I don't watch all these podcasts or people who make all of these things on YouTube. His name was Charlie Kirk, and he was, it seems like he's a very intelligent guy and was, very skillful at, pushing his point of view and all that, and that's fine. But one of the things he said is he was trying to prove to people that are going to college that you don't need to go to college. College is a scam. What they're teaching in college is a scam. Well, that's a very emotional argument. I could tell you that there are a lot of people that have gone to college, have gone to school, and they feel that the education that they received broadened their horizons, taught them things. And he tries to prove it by showing, an English lit major that he can't name 3 books that were written by Ayn Rand. That's not, I don't agree with that. I actually don't agree with that. I think you should always invest in learning and not just in certificates. Okay, that's very important. So skills, again, will generally pay you more than degrees. And don't listen to people who say it's not worth to be educated, or don't go to college, or don't get a PhD, or don't get an MBA. If that's an aspiration that you have, if you think that that's going to help you, if you want to learn, if you have that desire and that burning gut that you want to learn, absolutely do that. Don't chase certificates, and don't listen to people who tell you that an education is worthless, because that's not right. And there are a lot of people who have succeeded very well with designations, and there are a lot of people who didn't get college education and have done well in life as well. There's something also called common sense and street smarts, okay? So I wouldn't say don't go to college or don't get an education. What else can I say? I would also tell you that one of the things you might want to do is keep in mind that you don't need permission to chase your dreams. If you want to be a doctor, go for it. You want to be a financial guru, go for it. You want to be a teacher, go for it. You want to make coffee, go for it. Everybody is wired differently, and it is disrespectful and wrong to think that your aspirations should be everybody's aspirations, okay? You don't need to follow anybody else's dreams. You don't need to listen to what other people think you should be doing. You should be doing and following what you feel is in your heart. If finance is not what you like, and you're not interested in it, and you're just doing it for the money, there's going to come a time where you're just going to go, oh, I can't stand this. I got to get out of this. And you will, okay? It is very difficult to pursue a goal for the rest of your life that you really hate or that you have no interest in, and you're just chasing it again, like I said earlier, for the money. But in terms of your dreams, don't let anybody sell you short on that. You should always pursue your dreams, and don't ask anybody's permission to chase your dreams. And some of the most successful people have gone up against other people who told them, you'll never make it, and they did. You don't need anybody's validation or permission to actually, chase your dreams. Another one that I could think of would be, quick success. All these ideas about quick success. Quick success fades, okay? You make a great investment today, you cash out, that's it. 3 years from now, people are not going to be talking about it. Build things that last. Build things that make a difference. Build things that people can talk about and say, hey, he or she not only makes money and is successful, but this is what they're doing for other people along the way. So keep in mind, quick success. Wow, that's a Freudian slip. Quick success does fade. So build things that actually last. I think that's really very, very important. One other one that's coming to mind as related to the CFA program: discipline, discipline, discipline. You got to have discipline, because discipline beats motivation every time. You can have a lot of motivation to do something, but if you're not disciplined, or you don't have a strategy, you don't have a plan, you don't have a plan of execution, it probably will not amount to much. I see this in the CFA program all the time. I'm going to spend 800 hours studying for level 2. Well, you're motivated to pass level 2. It's not a real strategy. Okay? You don't need to spend 800 hours. You need to be disciplined. You have to have something structured. You should many times have something that's structured, that shows you the order in which you need to do things, how to do things to accomplish your goals. I am totally a proponent of that. And if I had known that at 23, wow, I think things would be very different today as well. But discipline beats motivation, because I am highly motivated, but sometimes when I was younger, I lacked the discipline to sit down and do it, and nothing came out of it. Discipline beats motivation every time. Okay? And one of the last things I'd probably say also is, or I'll leave it at this, otherwise it's going to get too long, is what you actually tolerate in life is your limit, or becomes your limit, okay? So what you tolerate becomes your limit, okay? And I think that's really an important also lesson to keep in mind, or something as a 23-year-old that I wish I had known. And again, things would probably be different, okay? In other words, you should tolerate only what you can really stomach, okay? If you can't tolerate something, you got to let somebody know, this doesn't work with me. You got to set your boundaries. You got to set your limits. You can't have people walking all over you. So what you tolerate will become your limit, okay? And never tolerate anything that you don't feel is appropriate. Again, now I realize that a lot of these suggestions that I'm giving you may not work in every environment, in every country of the world, because things are working differently than they might in the United States or Canada or even Europe. But a lot of these lessons can be applied to other aspects of your life. I hope you found this little update helpful. And if you have any comments or you disagree, feel free to reach out to me. You could comment below the video, or you could just send me a text or an email. Everything is on my website at chalkandboard.org. That's CHALK and AND, board, BOARD, chalkandboard.org. Thanks for listening.